Okay, recording.
So another round of the new economy, our free format meeting. So far we've talked about community kitchens and just giving away free food to people. Maybe that's a good way to do the economy. Not quite. I think that there's a Silash at least seems to want to get away from the idea of having pieces of paper. Just have the food out there, either cooked or uncooked. I like to cook my food. So if it was up to me right now, though, if it was the free food, I would get. I'm not sure if I could get everything. I can't get yeast, uh, but I had some yeast on hand, so I haven't run out of it yet. But I don't know how in the new economy we'd take care of that. But in the old economy, well, I could get before the pandemic, I could get the yeast, but now I can't.
I mean, I'm imagining that it would be, if you have food, free food, especially nutritious food, freely available. Okay, so people, that's a basic human right. Just like healthcare is a basic human right, or shelter is a basic human right, and clothing, whatever you need, right? I mean, so these basic needs should be the responsibility of the community to take care of that. And then people would say, these are all the things that need to be done in my neighborhood. We need to clean up the rivers, we need to whatever. So we need to plant all these trees, we need to create a food forest. So there are all these activities that you need volunteers for. So the question is, will you get volunteers, right? So that's the basic question we try to address with the community kitchen experiment. It's been happening for like 6 years now, maybe even longer. As far as I know, we've had it ever since we moved here. So that's 8 years. You had this community kitchen. And it was always run like that. It was always run like, it's a pay-as-you-can meal. And you come and you experience 14, 15 different vegan dishes. Initially, it wasn't vegan. So then it became vegan after they watched Cowspiracy. So they became vegan. And then the people who were running it did not go vegan, but they made the food vegan. They did not go vegan until they watched What the Health, and then they went vegan too. So it's like, you see the progression happening. But anyway, the idea there was food should be given away because food is how we come together as a community. So they had a business. So basically it was a business, and they were actually doing this as marketing for their business too. So it was marketing. And so they would say, come and experience our food. You don't have to pay anything. Just come and experience our food. And then you pay whatever you want. Pay what you can. And then in the evening, after you finished eating, and then you had your discussions with the community, whatever, then they asked for volunteers to mop the floor, to sweep the floor, clean up the kitchen, and wash all the dishes. So by the time we leave, that has to be like ready for the next person to come and use that kitchen. Okay, so that was the goal. And so far, it's been happening for the last 8 years, at least. My wife she's the volunteer coordinator. She says sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get enough people to volunteer, but usually you'll get someone to come along and say, yeah, we'll do this. And I think if you formalize it, if you just say, here is a list of things that need to be done, and people can check off. And you'll see right there on the board, those things haven't been checked off. I'm pretty sure that someone will come and check off and say, I'll do that. Because it shows that if nothing is checked off, it shows that the community is disintegrating. And no one likes that because they belong to that community. Okay? So there is that positive reinforcement that happens when you do something. like this example of the other example that happened during COVID-19. There are families who are going hungry. Okay, there were families going hungry because they don't have a job, and or they were day laborers or wage laborers, and they were not getting enough money, and so they basically were not eating. So they were contacting some of the community members and saying, we don't have any food, so can you help us? And so we were then farming out and saying, okay, either make boxes of food and give it to them on a weekly basis, or offer to cook for them. So I said, okay, we picked one family of 5 people and said, we'll cook for them. We'll cook for them until they get a job. So I said, okay, I'll drop off the food every day, and I'll cook for 5 people for 2 meals. So morning meal afternoon meal and evening meal. So 10 meals. So I'll cook 10 meals and bring it to you. So I promised that, and then I started following it. Just cooking something. It was always whole foods and vegan meals. And after 10 days, they said, we now have a job. It's okay. We don't need any more food. Thank you very much. Right? But my God, the amount of blessings I was getting, like Dios lo bendigo, all in Spanish, of course. May God bless you, you and your family. And they are so taken up by that. And we feel close to them. And it was just a simple act of feeding someone who didn't have food. And we had plenty of rice here. We had plenty of lentils here, so we could cook that.
So where does the rice and the lentils come from?
So this side we had bought, right? So it was like we had bought. So basically, in the new economy, what would happen is people will come and say, what can you contribute, right? Everyone has to contribute something. It's about contributionism as opposed to capitalism, right? So someone can say, I'm a rice farmer. I'll be happy to contribute rice to the community. Or I grow vegetables in my home, so I'll be happy to contribute that. So we are now formalizing that in the K-Mama app. We are trying to say, okay, in the K-Mama app, you have people who can cook, who want to cook for their neighbors, people who are hungry, who want to eat food, and then people who want to grow vegetables and things and who want to contribute. So it's like matching these. So that's what the app is trying to do, is match these people up. Whoever wants to cook, then the guy who's growing will say, I want to contribute to you because you're cooking 5 meals or 10 meals a day for someone or the other. And then, so this way you can create an informal economy of basically free food flowing through this economy. And we're actually we'll be inviting restaurants to join, and restaurants would join saying that, we would offer this particular a whole food meal today. So there's the meal of the day. You're asking them to put a meal of the day, which is a whole food plant-based meal. So this way, healthy immune boosting meals are available to people on demand. No need for money. And again, I've found that if you want to incorporate money in your app, it's a pain in the neck. So I'm better off not having any money in the app.
And those are going to be universal meal certified, like through the PCRM?
Right. Those are going to be universal. So this way, no matter where you are, you can join and participate. So you know what you're going to get. You can look up the list of universal meal recipes and you'll see what you're going to get. So the idea is to disrupt the current system with a new bifurcation. So a bifurcation in which healthy meals are suddenly available for free. It should be available for free for anyone who wants it. And then have some kind of a game going where you say, which city has zero hunger first? Which country has zero hunger first? And start building up some kind of um, a game around it so that people want to participate. They want to give whatever resources they have. They say, you know, hey farmer, if you need money, I have some cash, I can give it to you. And so please grow the potatoes. So this way you're no longer penalizing abundance, right? Right now in our current system, we penalize abundance. You grew too many potatoes, your price of potatoes plummeted to zero, so you're getting nothing out of it. So they're dumping the potatoes by the side of the road. Yes, Ray. You are on mute. You're on mute.
Race seems to be unmuted, but
We don't hear you.
Maybe lagging. It's not hearing me?
now we can hear
We
you.
just started hearing you.
Oh, okay, because I saw the box go around me. We talked about the universal basic income. What about universal basic nutrition? If there was a way to feed everybody, that is the basic. And we know that, just for an example, if you work as a camp counselor for a summer, you don't get paid a lot, but you get fed and you're housed for the summer. So a lot of students find that a good trade-off, and they have money for their school year or whatever. That's scalable to everybody, isn't it?
Right.
You don't need as much money when you have a certain aspect. And the big ones are, of course, food, shelter. I guess air is free still for a while. Water.
Water.
Unless Nestle has their way.
Right. Water, and then healthcare. So it has to be taken care of.
Water is very much an issue on the global scale. Not something we think about as much here, but we do need these things to be global. And so that also brings up the issue of are these local solutions or are they global solutions? And how do you do both at the same time?
Right. No, these have to be global. This is a global bifurcation that has to happen. So, and actually, Shelley and Jan, I'm getting an echo. Okay. So Shelley and Jan are going to be talking tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I think I sent the Zoom notice, maybe not to everyone here, but I'll put the Zoom notice up here. Basically, they're talking about a new platform they're creating called Citizens for a Healthy Earth, which is a platform that has that uses all open source software to create a community, that online community. And one of the first campaigns they want to run is a pure water campaign. So they are actually asking governments to sign on to it too, saying, it's a basic right. Having access to pure water is a basic right. And it should be a basic right, not just for human beings, but for all life. So meaning it's unacceptable that we have polluted rivers, polluted streams, polluted waterways. So we have to do whatever it takes to clean those up. And so, because it's unacceptable to let animals drink polluted water, right? And so they are getting sick from it too, and they're dying out. So if you start with that, and then you get everyone to agree that that is true, that they can support that, then automatically people are going to be asked to grow forests and all this, because we have to clean up the water. So that's their idea. That's how they're saying that's how you get people to switch how they allocate resources. Okay. Now, it should be public resources, because obviously the private resources, people are going to say, how can I make more money for myself? Right? That's what we have in the current system. So, but I think that could also be a potential bifurcation of the economy. What Jamin was saying is, when you, like, bifurcation is like, having, he was using Coke versus Pepsi as an example. There was only one cola until Pepsi came along and said, young people like Pepsi. And so suddenly Coke became the drink for the old people. And so then there was a new market born with all these other little seven dwarfs, became more viable. So in the same way, when we go and assert that nutritious food has to be free and pure water is a basic right, and our governments are failing us when we don't have access to pure water, we are actually creating this bifurcation. And if enough people start supporting us on this, then you'll force a change in the system. Okay, that's one other way of creating this new economy from the old.
So why hasn't someone already done this? I mean, there are food kitchens, aren't there? And so, I actually have heard of a couple of places in Denver where you can go out, you pay what you want. It's not vegan, but there's you can go there and just eat. And the Christians sort of had something like that at one point, where you could where they would offer free food once a week, I think, or once a month. I'm not sure.
Once a week, yeah.
But usually they would sort of casually expect you to participate in their chanting or whatever. But so not sure how people responded to that. But
yeah, I know Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs used to eat at a Hare Krishna place like that when he was going to school. And he says that kind of kept him going because he would eat a big meal once a week and then he would go for a week. But all I'm saying is we need to formalize that. We need to formalize it and make it widely available. And not only just once a week, but on a regular basis.
Well, wouldn't you have to sort of know these people personally? I mean, wouldn't you, for the system to work? Because
see, my example is that I had no clue who these people were. Okay, when I started cooking for them, I had no clue who they were. And but all I knew is that there were 5 people there, right? And I was sort of cooking for them. But in those 10 days, just going and dropping food, taking the plates, taking the container back, bringing new food every day, and then thinking of what am I going to cook tomorrow, that whole thing became an experience that connected the two of us, even though we had no clue who we were. Okay, so so these connections are formed and can be formed automatically. All you need is that they are somewhere in the neighborhood. Okay? They're only 15, 20 miles from here.
Have you guys heard of the free cycle?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so is there anything that comes in similar to this? Like anything similar or distinguishes?
Yeah, free cycle is a free exchange of goods, of things, right? So this is free cycle for cooking of food. Normally free cycle is for materials. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned about the thing. So coming back to Julia's topic, the ocean. Finally, I think things end up in ocean or so I know it should be even a massive project. Like we'll have to literally camp in water to clean all those or
Yeah, ocean cleanup is a huge, huge issue.
So, Julia, Nancy, any thoughts on any of this?
I'm just listening. I have my doubts about it working on a large term scale in the world we have today and that quickly. I don't know. No, because of, I guess, the way that most people are used to living. I think that for establishing equity, there's so many people that are starving in the world today, and it shouldn't be that way. Even in the U.S., there's food deserts, and it's crazy. You know, they're throwing food away and killing animals, and it could not have been managed worse. You know, I do agree that plant foods, you know, whole produce, that should be free. It's probably easier to produce that than anything, you know, and in areas like climates where I live in Baltimore, where it's not kind of weather all year round, indoor greenhouses, and just figure out ways to be able to grow localized food all year round. I think that would definitely be something that could and should work, you know. I think that obviously the massive amount of wealth, let me turn my video on. I was moving around and it's so obnoxious to be on these Zoom things and move around. There we go. Hi, everybody. So yeah, I mean, first we need to make it equitable, like nobody should go hungry. And if the government was managing things properly, you know, national and local governments, that wouldn't happen. But with the system we have today, it's kind of designed to have some people that are poor because you need worker bees. And it's designed that, you know, you think of even in education, like the system, we get public education for free, but then what happens is if you want to get a job, you have to get a college degree for the most part. That's what people are told. And there's a few people that make it despite that, but most don't. So now, if you really want to live and be like even, you know, at an average level in the system, then you got to get a college degree and then a master's degree, then maybe so it puts you in debt to the system for years and years. And it's just wrong, you know, I think we all agree with that. So I think there's a lot of equity that needs to happen first, and I wouldn't just transition to a no money system like that. I think I could see there's still going to be people that are going to steal things. There are going to be still people that are going to hoard things. You know, I don't know. It's hard to imagine. Not that an economy wouldn't work, but as society functioning, I don't know that. You know, money is. It's not that money is evil, but it's how it's used. You know, and how things are managed. So that's what I think. But it's fascinating listening to it. I mean, I would never say I'm smarter than Silas, that's for sure. I wouldn't debate you on anything, Silas, because you'd win, but.
It's not about winning at all.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
About people holding.
Yeah, about not just eliminating money completely and even not quickly, but finding ways that we can make things equitable now.
Right.
And just like going vegan, you know, it's important, you know, advocating on an individual level in our daily lives, but we also have to work on institutional changes as well.
Right.
And that's, you know, happening too. So both are needed. Yeah, I mean, I don't see it as an either or thing, but and I think that there's, you know, what do you do about people that are blind or deaf, or people that have physical challenges, and even in our system now, deaf and blind people are very marginalized.
Mm-hmm.
very marginalized, and it's just awful. And then you've got these vegans who are against seeing eye dogs, and I'm like, what? I won't even say it because it would be bad words. I don't want to use bad words. But it really makes me mad, you know. That's just so stupid, you know. And so the thing I've been thinking about lately too, with all these conspiracy theories flying around, and it's just gotten really bizarre, you know. That to me, unity isn't agreeing on everything, but it's finding common ground, finding some common goals and some common ground. It's like, okay, we don't agree, but we still have to try to work together and to get rid of all the shaming and the blaming. And it just doesn't, you know. And then it takes like individual peace. You know, I've been exposed to meditation and being influenced by people who are very spiritually inclined, and it's really made such a huge difference in my life. But it's also put me really against the mainstream. Like my whole life, I started meditating when I was 16, and when I thought I had become pretty normal, I had like gotten the normal thing down, you know, enough. And then I went vegan, and I was like, okay, here we go again, you know, I'm against the mainstream. And I'm very passionate about it too, you know, and it's so why am I going off on this tangent? I know there was a method to my madness. I guess because everybody's so different, you know. I think that in order for what you're proposing, like, people really have to have inner peace. And I think that having our needs met will go a long way in establishing that, but it's not a given. I was involved in a group that was around meditation for many, many years. And I still listen to the person who's was head of it, but I found this was a group of people that were pursuing inner peace, and they could not get along. Like, at each other's throats sometimes, you know. And these are people that had been trained by, the person's name is Prem Rawat, trained by him to, you know, be like speakers and instructors. I mean, you'd think that they'd be, but they could not get along. So he, you know, planned that whole system, and now it's you know, it's streamlined. But but really, you know, it's I guess like I'm talking about a balance, like the inner and the outer, the personal and the institutional. You know, and the thing with vegans is there's more and more people that are coming this way, and so diverse ideas of how things. And in vegan world, there's been infighting even before all this stuff happened, even before the Impossible Burger Wars, and now the conspiracy theory wars. It's like, can we get any more at each other's throats? I mean, you know. So there's it's a consciousness shift. It's an internal shift, and I think that would have to be an integral part of it. You know, you have to, like, okay, if you want to get your food, you have to meditate today. No, I'm only kidding. But it really needs to be normalized. You know, this personal piece really needs to be normalized for a culture like that to work. I guess that's what I'm saying. You know, because I just will be people that'll steal and hoard and cheat, and, you know, I've had things stolen off my porch already that I had delivered. And I was in a nice neighborhood. I'm surprised. Okay, that's enough for me. Thank you so much.
Yes, yeah, I think you put your finger on something that's really important. It's that division of our society, that everything is polarized, that you're left or right, you're Republican or Democrat, which really isn't left or right. It's kind of like a narrow space for debate where there's so much more to talk about, but we're stuck choosing sides, and every issue has already been predetermined to be part of a side. Almost everything that's an issue is dealt with on the left, and the right is says no taxes. You know, so this polarization kind of prevents any sort of whole-scale change, because there's people that are just going to automatically be against it, even when it benefits them. It's interesting to see this this COVID crisis, how it affects the middle class in America when they insisted that we had to get Trump into office because that Rust Belt felt like they were being left behind by the neoliberal order of the Republicans, and they're not necessarily wrong. So it's interesting that this pandemic is going to be demanding a lot of social services. And
I can't hear you.
Ray, can you shut off your video? I think audio may be better.
I'm not sure how much got through. Can you hear me?
It might just be me. Maybe I'm the only one.
I was talking about the polarity of our society right now, and how do we get through that?
I think once we had the same issue and Ray was there, probably if his RAM is overused, we are getting it. Probably if we restart, we'll be okay. Once we had the same thing in the call, I remember.
It seems like having a common enemy brings people together. Survival. Which is not sustainable, I know. Although maybe we could just get everybody to hate Trump.
Yeah. So we need to tell a different story. Now, this is what I try to do in the white paper. Is you need to tell a story in which this polarization is part of that story. It's built in, and as part of that story, we are in the process of transforming from that to something where we come together. So it is saying, yeah, this is part of the thing. It's okay. We've been polarized. That's the way things are, and now we have been put into this state where we are asked to think about things. There's a lot of introspection is supposed to be happening at this time because we are in the chrysalis phase of humanity. So we have gone through the caterpillar phase, now in the chrysalis phase, and we have to think about what are we going to become as in the butterfly phase. What are we going to be? How are we going to contribute? So, this is just a storytelling that it's a story in which nature has always been in charge. And we are part of nature, that we've always been part of nature. So it's not a story in which we are acting, right? It's a story in which we have been made to act this way. So it's the, you don't have free will type of story. So that makes people feel like, hey, I'm part of something much, much larger. And as part of that, I'm going to change, whether I like it or not. Yeah. So this is the thing about free will, is that I think Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said that. He said that as long as you're asleep, you think you have free will. It's only when you wake up you realize you've been played all along. So, and then of course when you wake up,
Can you explain that? I don't understand that.
As long as you're asleep, you think you have free will. It's only when you wake up that you realize that you've been played all along.
I don't understand that.
You've been played all along, meaning you're part of something much, much larger. You've been used. You've been used all along, right? And so but what he's also pointing out is that even when you wake up, you still don't have free will. Because when you wake up, you are automatically doing what is the most compassionate thing to do. And there is no choice there. You're kind of stuck doing that over and over. So that's the paradox of freedom. We think we are free, and of course, all along you're enslaving others to make yourself free, right? And when you enslave others, you're not free. The slave is more, I mean, the master is more of a slave than the slave, right? And so then when you truly become free, you realize you're never free.
Doesn't that feel like the ultimate freedom?
It
when you're
is.
fully awake
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it
you're
is.
because you're really in tune with your truest nature.
Right. It is.
You're
But
flowing. You're not fighting. It's a flow. And
it's a flow, yes.
Mhm.
But at that point also, you really don't have too many choices in what you're doing. You're doing what is for the best of all, for the good of all. So you are constantly doing things, but you're doing. It's not like you have now in us. As soon as I'm free, I'll have infinite choices. I can do whatever I want. No. Right? That's the paradox of freedom. So, I mean, we reorganize ourselves, so basically I'm framing it as a different set of tools that we have to use, right? When we become butterflies. So currently we are using a hammer and a chisel. So we are like the sculptor. We've been making something. So, and we have created homeostasis for planet Earth. So the Earth will never have to ever go back to another ice age again, as long as we're around. Okay, so then when you, so then you have to pick up a different set of tools now to clean up the Earth. So we have to clean up the mess we have made. We have to regenerate and remediate the planet. We have to bring back fresh water everywhere, pure water everywhere. We have to bring back the forests and regenerate life, so that you're saying this is what life wanted all along. Life did not want to go back to another ice age. So it created us. And created us and made us such an awful prey species that we were a prey species in the beginning, because we were being eaten up by all kinds of saber-toothed tigers and monstrous animals, right? It forced us to go figure out how to build these weapons and how to harness fire. It forced us to do all that, right? And then we became stronger and stronger, and we became predators. So we became the fiercest predators on the planet. We killed all the saber-toothed tigers. We killed all of these big animals. And now we have to do the job that those animals are doing. That's what you get when you kill them, right? Those animals were doing something amazing too. They were like, spreading seeds far, and they were doing the equivalent of a huge brush fire. They would graze all these grass, prevent fires from spreading. And now we have to do that because we killed them. Or you have to somehow bring them back. So we are now at the stage where we can think about, if we begin with the assumption that we are part of something much, much larger, you begin with the assumption that you're part of nature, you've always been a part of nature, and nature wanted this to happen, then you say, how can I contribute now? How can I now bring life back from the brink? So it's because you're part of something much, much larger. So don't sit around blaming each other, blaming others, blaming what happened, blaming our ancestors. None of that is worth it. It's you're a puppet. You've been a puppet all along. So that is the awakening that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was talking about. Okay, then you say, yeah, this is the way it is. This is the way life wanted this to happen, and life is now saying, okay, go figure out how to become a thermostat species, maintain this temperature so that life can thrive forever. That's our immortality as a species, right? So any culture has three things. It specifies how we treat each other. Okay, so it has a set of values about how we treat each other. It guarantees immortality to the people who believe in this culture, who are part of this culture. So in the current culture, it's immortality after you die. You'll go to heaven if you behave properly, right? And after you die, you'll be immortal. No. So the new immortality is you're part of a thriving life. So which means that your children will be there, your grandchildren will be there. So you've made sure that this can continue forever. That's sustainability, right? But this can thrive forever. So that is immortality. So as long as the earth is not going to get swallowed up by the sun, you're going to be fine, which is another few billion years. So you can evolve. You'll probably go to other planets, whatever it is. But you have immortality in this life. There's only one life. This is the life. So that's what a culture does. And a civilization to me is an engineering implementation of the culture. If the culture says all men are created equal, the civilization has to implement all men are created equal. All beings are created equal. It's not just men and women are created equal. Right? So you have to implement that. You have to make people feel that that is true in the implementation. So the civilization has to match that culture. If we say that we are all given life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, this is inalienable right, then that has to be part of your civilization. So if it isn't part of your civilization, then we say, well, what is wrong? Anytime in an engineering project, anytime an implementation does not match specifications, there is something about reality that we haven't understood and that we have to fix. Okay? We have to fix our understanding of it. When we fix our understanding of it, our implementation will match our specifications.
Ray and Nancy have both submitted comments. Ray says,
Right.
How do we overcome social polarity? And so much of environmentalism and veganism has led to self-loathing.
Right. So that's the new story, right? You have to tell a new story in which you don't blame the environmentalists, so you don't blame the people who are not on our side. You're saying that is part of the same polarity. This is why I tell the story of the wishing child and the watching child. So in that wishing child watching, I'm sure you've all heard the story of the wishing child and the watching child. I said that many, many times. But so in that story, the watching child understood the wishing child and realized that the wishing child was stuck wishing the way he was wishing. He was stuck. So he realized the brilliant cosmic swindle. That's how they frame it, the brilliant cosmic swindle that was being performed by the wishing tree. I don't know. Does everybody know this story? Should I repeat it?
The wishing child and the watching child?
Uh-huh.
You may have said it and I forgot about it.
Okay. Oh, don't know the story? Okay, I'll tell the story. It's one of the stories that helped me understand the knowledge tree story in the Bible. You know the knowledge tree story in the Bible?
Oh,
The apple tree?
The Garden of Eden.
The Garden of Eden.
he blamed it on Eve. He said she made me do it.
Yes, yeah, blamed it on Eve.
Patriarchy started right away.
And then he got kicked out of Eden, right? They both got kicked out of Eden. So they're no longer part of nature, right? And so then that gives them a license to go and destroy nature because they're not part of it. So that's how the story is interpreted, right? So it turns out that there is an exact equivalent story in the Hindu culture. And the Hindu, Jain, Buddhist, it's all the same culture. So there is a foundational story, which is the equivalent of the Adam and Eve story. But instead of Adam and Eve, the role of Adam and Eve is played by children. And the role of the serpent is played by a rich uncle in this story. Okay, so but it's a very similar story, but it helped me understand the Adam and Eve story. So I'll tell you the story. So the story begins with children playing with sticks and stones and rag dolls on the floor of their hut in the middle of the forest. And their rich uncle comes to visit them. And their uncle says, "Why are you playing with sticks and stones when the wishing tree is right outside your hut? Go out under the wishing tree and wish for anything you want, and it'll give you, sophisticated toys, any kind of toys you want, instead of sticks and stones." The children don't believe him. How can there be a wishing tree? This is not how the universe is built. So they wait until the uncle leaves, and then they rush to the tree and they start wishing. And they wish for sweets, and they get them. And they gorge on the sweets and they get stomachache. And they wish for toys, and they get them. And they play with the toys and they get bored. Then they wish for fancier toys, and that leads to greater boredom. So there was something about this tree that they did not understand. It grants you what you wish for, and along with it comes the exact opposite. Because that's how the universe is built, of dualities. Nothing comes separate by itself. The children didn't know that. All they knew is that they couldn't stop wishing under the tree, and the more they wished, the more miserable they were. Then they get to be young men and women. Now they're wishing for what young men and women wish for. The 4 main fruits of the tree were sex, fame, money, and power. And with each comes its opposite, and the result was more misery and suffering for the young men and women. Then they get to be old men and women. And they congregate under the tree in 3 different groups. The first group says, this tree ruined our lives. And we were so happy when we didn't know about this tree. It has all been a hoax and a farce. And the story says they were fools, but they hadn't understood the tree. The second group says, we must have been wishing for all the wrong things. If we could go back and wish for different things, I'm sure we'd have been a lot happier. And the story says they were bigger fools, but they understood less than nothing about this tree. And the third group was the most foolish of the lot, but they come under the tree and they say, we are so miserable, we wish you were dead. And the tree grants them the wish. And they're immediately reborn underneath the same tree, because the tree always grants wishes in dualities. Nothing comes separate by itself, right? So meanwhile, a lame child was watching all this from inside the window of the hut. He also wanted to go out and wish for a good leg so he could walk. But there was such a crowd of people under the tree, and they pushed him away. He couldn't get through. So he stood there and he watched, and he saw how the tree was making everybody miserable. The people who were wishing were miserable. The people who were trying to get to the tree were miserable. All the animals were suffering because of all the wishing. And then he had a brilliant flash of insight. He understood the tree. He saw the brilliant cosmic swindle that was being performed under the tree. And he felt a well of compassion come from within him for all the suffering under the tree. And with that, he lost the desire to wish. He became detached from the tree. And with that combination of compassion and detachment, he was the happiest of the lot. So that's where the story ends. Okay, and then we have the Upanishads, where they tell you what they tell you what they told you in the Vedas, right? They teach you what they told you in the Vedas. And in the Upanishads, they say that wishing child and the watching child are inside each one of us. That's our duality. And it's up to us to get in touch with our watching child. This is the idea behind meditation. Get in touch with your watching child and observe your own wishing child so that you can understand your wishing child. And be compassionate to yourself first. Okay? So it makes it seem like if you really want to be happy, you need to just step away from the universe and watch yourself and watch others. Just be an observer. So that is the question that comes up in the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita again is a dialogue between man and God, and man is asking God, why are you making me fight a war? Why are you making me do all this? You know, you are God, so you take care of it. And God says, how do you think I take care of it? So get your butt in there and start fighting, right? So then he explains to him why this is all part of something much, much larger, right? So in the Bhagavad Gita, he basically says that you have to act. Life is about action. You have to act, and you have to act for the good of the whole at all times. And you have to let go of the fruits of that action because you are not capable of understanding the larger picture at play. So you have to let go and say, yeah, you know, I'm just going to do my best. I'm just going to keep doing my best at all times. And I'm going to trust that there is a larger intelligence at play. So that's what he's asking people to do. That's the Bhagavad Gita, right? So it again comes to the same question of the watching child versus the wishing child, right? And he's telling us to be in touch with your watching child, but act. Go wish for the benefit of everyone else. And say, I don't want anything from this tree for myself. Then you'll be perfectly happy wishing under the tree, and everyone will be happy because of your wishing. So that's the explanation. The wishing tree story. So then, you know, you realize that Adam and Eve got kicked out because they ate the apple themselves. If they had taken the apple and fed a bird, they would still be in Eden. It's as simple as that, right?
So all we need to do is bring enlightenment.
Selfishness. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so all we need to do is, so our mission is to bring enlightenment to everyone, or
No. Our mission, I think, is to formalize this. You know, to formalize give a structure to this new food system in which healthy, immune-boosting food is available for free. A structure in which gift economy is normal. Meaning people are doing things because they want to do it, not because they have to do it, right? So then things that people have to do, I mean, right now people have to do certain things because they're basically slaves. Those things won't get done, you know? Bad things won't get done. I mean, people are now going to be in slaughterhouses because no one wants to work there. So you'll automatically close it, right? No one wants to do, you know, I don't know, going and catching fish in the ocean, and because they're basically slaves doing that. Or no one wants to go mine that, you know, especially using these toxic processes. No one wants to mine that. So it's up to now, if you really want to mine that particular mineral, you have to figure out a non-toxic way of doing it. And then you have to appeal to people, you know, can you help me, right, to get it done? And if people see that there is a necessity for it, they will help you. So the idea is to create now a new framework in which structuralize it, you know, to that it's based on a foundation of volunteerism as opposed to coercion. What gets done? Well, certain things won't get done. Fine, probably never needed to get done anyway, right? So in fact, this is what I'm asking my engineering friends, you know, my classmates who are now entering their 60s, so who are all looking to retire. And, you know, I'm obviously, you know, I know everyone from every discipline of engineering. And I'm telling them, if you were to figure out a way to redo all of your engineering with completely non-toxic processes so that people love to go do your work, how would you do it? Right? I mean, clearly you wouldn't do silicon the way we do silicon today because it's full of toxic chemicals. But the people have been working on, say, carbon-based electronics, right? That you can do. That's non-toxic. That's all organic molecules, organic chips you can build. And maybe there'll be more research into that we need to do, right? Meanwhile, we need to build these things so that they last for 10 years or 20 years instead of lasting for just 6 months or a year and getting switched out for the next one, right? So we have to start building things that last. So how do you formalize that? So that's where the Aquarius idea was born. You know, the Aquarius idea is about creating a true cost mechanism so that even in the current system, you can play that Aquarius game and thereby kind of coerce corporations to change. Because unless corporations change, we don't have enough power to switch things out. And so the vegan movement has shown that we can make corporations change from the bottom up by just demanding, you know, certain things. We just demanded plant-based foods, and suddenly Wendy's has plant-based foods. You know, Burger King has plant-based foods. So, so we have the power to make even our corporations change. And so that's what I was trying to formalize into other things beyond food, which is what the Aquarius game is about.
I'll give it a try talking again. Can you hear me okay? This is such a different story than a lot of the solutions that, you know, the people that are going to save the world have offered, because they tend to think of top-down solutions. How are we going to get our governments to behave? Our governments aren't behaving, so getting them to behave is the way that you fix the world. This happens without their involvement. They're, you know, presumably in this process, they're helpless to stop it. And I think that's, you know, what they generally try to do. I don't expect much from the government, but one thing that I do, that I decided to draw the line on, is tell the truth. They can at least do that. I mean, it is sort of the opposite of politics in a lot of people's opinions.
Politicians tell the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the big shift that happened in before 2006. So, sorry, 2026 was that politicians started telling the truth, and then everything went straight. But you're describing things that are happening despite, you know, whatever's happening in politics, and environmentalists really don't understand it at all. So it's a lot of our work is to get them to realize this is all in their best interests. And but yeah, just telling the truth about things like what's in your white paper, that animal agriculture is such a powerful tool to solve all these problems, yet they won't touch it. They won't talk about it. They won't even speak the truth about it. So this is, you know, it would happen so much faster if we had people in places of influence to help share that message. And we find ourselves looking towards Hollywood rather than Washington for this kind of influence, which seems a little bit bizarre. I mean, I've been as critical as many for actors who seem to think that they know an awful lot more than an actor should about politics. Hopefully they've got, with their millions of dollars, that they've got the right people advising them. But yeah, how does this play out when we have an economy that's entirely built on our government? Our government runs this economy. When it fails, how do we give them what we come up with here in Vegan World 2026? We're designing the new idea of when this fails, we'll put something in its place that's better without having the government involved. How does that work? It just slides into place?
Isn't our economy also largely based on the stock market?
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's like a very fluid. There's nothing stable about it. It's kind of scary. That's why I always thought that it was the stock market, and it would seem like this shift of currency would it would be based on, actually you wouldn't need the stock market anymore, I guess, but nobody even knows how the stock market works. If you try to ask, somebody like, how does it, people really don't even know, it's very weird. It's very strange.
And it's funny that I mentioned that this division in our country and our society is one of the problems, yet at the same time, both political parties totally love the stock market and support it. That's how they roll. That's how they get elected in the first place, is to find the heavy hitters to get them elected.
And the other thing I see is I feel that another way that we've totally been had is think about how much money every year and every 4 years to elect a president, but political leaders are always asking for money. It's like they already make a lot of money, and then they want us to give more. We have to pay them to do their job that they're already getting paid for. It's such a racket. You think of the millions and millions of dollars just to get elected. I just feel like, and then we have to micromanage them. Then we have to tell them, no, you really shouldn't be dumping toxic chemicals into waterways. Hello? We have to micromanage and tell them to do things that a 10-year-old would know you shouldn't be doing. I'm sorry, I'm taking myself on a tangent.
Now you're challenging me because you're swinging me back and forth. Now you're back into that idea that Democrats make legislation that inhibits the polluters, but the Republicans see it as inhibiting, people making money. So why are you doing that? Let's get rid of all that stuff. So every administration, it swings back and forth. And we start to fall into that pattern of thinking, yeah, well, that's the way it works. It goes this way, and then it goes that way, it goes this way and that way. And I've been guilty of thinking, well, that creates balance, doesn't it? You just, eventually switch to the other party and they balance it out. Or one is knitting a sweater and the other one's unraveling it, and you're not really getting anywhere. And I use that example because that was exactly a make work program where they decided to get jobs, because jobs are what the economy is based on, right? So they got people knitting sweaters in the morning shift, and the afternoon shift comes in and they're the sweater unravelers. So everybody's employed. Why isn't everybody happy? We get jobs. That's I can't remember where that example came from, but I'm pretty sure I didn't make it up.
That's a funny one.
Yeah, it's just like slightly brought to the extreme, but it isn't an awful lot different than what we see in our environmental movement, and they're frustrated by it too. The first environmental march was that I participated in was the March for Jobs, Justice, and the Climate. And they added the word jobs in there, hoping that more people would show up and get the message that they're concerned about jobs too. And in retrospect, looking at that years later, it shows this neoliberal attitude in the environmental movement. And I was, just shortly after that, like weeks after that, I got trained by Al Gore to give a slideshow presentation. And he was part of that march as well. And, as I was presenting his slideshows, I recognized that the only thing that counts as solutions is things that grow the economy. This is, solar is going to be on parity with coal in mere months. So when that happens, we'll have something to brag about. So green economy can grow grow our stuff, just grow our ability to make money and grow endlessly. We can keep that philosophy. We'll just paint it green.
I have to go now, but continue discussing and have fun. It was a great discussion. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, Keith. Same time next week?
Okay, yeah, same time next week.
Thank you.
And I sent out an email to everybody in the New Economy group. Hi, guys. Hoping you're watching the video because I suggested if you can't make the meeting, watch the video. And if you're in another time zone and would like to have another meeting, suggest it. I know at least one person in the UK that's interested in talking. And we can also try to work out something that's maybe on the 24-hour block party every Friday, because that goes around the clock. You pick any time zone you want, and anybody from this group can try to make it at whatever strange hour it happens.
Yeah, just like what I had 2 points. One was I kind of seeing like the same thing Sailesh was saying, how people are pushed to do things that normally they're not willing to do. That there would be a relaxed person sitting in a village or something, just probably reposing or something. So they kind of make you to borrow loans or something, all in the mindset of a fixed income and some kind of security. So it's kind of I'm tapping your future, okay? And I'm going to tap, one way is you keeping me busy, okay? I agree, because why? If you don't keep me busy, probably I'm going to do some crime. So maybe I will take it a little bit in a good sense on that, okay? Because it's a busy mind, okay? At least that way. But if I really go, I'm going also becoming a stressful mind. So I'm going and I'm pushing what to do. Obviously, somebody's falling sick on that, and they're also making others sick. So when the system has gone that much, now we are like, oh yeah, we need a mental health, mental wellness, and all those. We come with all this, but the point is how I'm tapping your I want you to really work that 9 hours, 8 hours, just because there is a sword on your head or you got to pay something. You're like, that's obviously slavery. I mean, we can tell it in whatever name you want, how much we go and entangle ourselves. Yeah, and some people realize that, some people don't realize that. Yeah, that is the one point I want to say. But the another one also I want to say from our group, okay? Why don't we invite each one of the vegan products or services or any compassionate product services, and we will invite them to the meeting, let them share about that products or service, okay? Because they are already making some change in the economy, and everybody, it's compassion, but I feel there is different flavors of compassion. Maybe we need that, and we can learn, or we can just help them, or how it goes into more into the, how it is evolving into the vegan world. Any suggestions, sir?
I have a friend who just finished a documentary and it's starting the festival circuit now, called The End of Meat. No, that one is an older documentary. It's called Meet the Future. I can ask her if she wants to come on the show, and she is close to Bruce Friedrich of the Good Food Institute. And I don't know how well Sailesh knows Bruce. We hope that he remembers us from the Toronto Veg Fest, the Vegan Food Fest, because we heckled him a little bit. But I think he deserved it. I can't believe they had the nerve to say to a group of vegans that cell-based agriculture was going to replace veganism and veganism would become obsolete. This is what he says to vegan activists. Don't worry, the markets will solve everything. And I'm like, wow. And the sad thing is I looked around and nobody really got upset by it. And
I've heard that cell meat is extremely environmentally damaging. That it's not better replacement. I mean, animals, aren't be slaughtered, but I can't imagine it taking, I don't know.
But it's a techno fix anyway you slice it. Even the Beyond Burgers are techno fix, but it may be that techno fix for the mental fix that we need that to get off of meat. I think the best thing about cellular agriculture is that it gets the conversation going, because they're saying what we need to change to, and they're saying why we need to change to it. So if you had a battle royale, and I've challenged the city of Toronto to have this film festival where you have Sailesh's films, and there's one documentary called Bugs on the Menu. So we need protein so bad we can grow bugs in abandoned warehouses in Toronto. Oh, does that sound like a great idea? That's how it came up. It's actually in their brochure. The future of Toronto, we're eating bugs. Urban protein, don't you know? So in the end, we got, vat-grown meat. Bruce says you have to call it clean meat. I don't have to do anything. I am calling it vat-grown meat. Because there's that gross out factor. You're growing it like in a brewery. It's probably a sterile brewery, so it's probably pretty clean. And yet at the same time, it's this quivering bit of animal in a dish. I mean, it won't quiver unless you shake it, but that's kind of gross. So where's this, desperate need to be natural in our food system, yet we're going to grow cells from an animal, and that's what we're going to survive on. And at the end of the day, it's meat. It's an animal protein that we know more and more is just as unhealthy. It never pooped in its life, so at least it's a little bit more sterile. But
Dr. Milton Mills is vehemently opposed to it. It sounded like he knew a lot more about it than I ever heard, and he said that there's so many chemicals and it has to be a sterile environment, and he was the one that was saying that it's more, it's just as environmentally damaging, maybe even more than animal agriculture. It just sounds weird to me. I can't imagine a meat eater actually being willing to, people are still a little shy of vegan cheese because they think it's chemicals. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, I had one thought. I don't know where I heard. Okay, I'm not able to remember the source, but that's totally altered my way of seeing the lab-grown meat. I mean, I'm vegan, means vegan. I really don't need cholesterol or anything or compassion. Okay, but where I'm really coming is, they said it's like for dogs. I think I heard you can give some food, mixed food, but the cats you have to give only the meat food. You cannot give some veggies. Maybe, I don't know, but you cannot just put them on veggies or something. So they said these lab-grown meats are the big hope for all these vegans who have pets. At least I don't have to, because that is one of the things everybody feels guilty about it. I am vegan, I rescue cats, but what I do is I have to I'm supporting.
There is some very good vegan cat food. It's a little pricey, but I'm switching. My cats are at least half vegan now, and we won't go into, and I can put it in the chat, but because we know that the food that the animal products that these pets are fed are the worst of the worst, diseased body parts, things that they would never normally eat, and it's just such poisons. And so even though they're carnivores, they can still get the nutrients they need from, a good vegan brand. And they've been studying, it's been out for a long time. That's something new. So I have full confidence in
Okay.
foods. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, as long as there is
send me an email, I can give you some more information on it.
Yeah. But I heard a lot of people hearing that hypocrisy thing. Like, I know I shouldn't do this, but I don't know how to do this. Then there's a lab-grown meat. I'm waiting for this. At least I could feed my cat. There'll be some
the company called Because Animals, I'll put it in the chat. They're working on lab-grown pet food.
Please, yeah. I think I heard it in the VSDC group, the Veg Society of DC. I remember, yeah.
Now, I've said enough about the Good Food Institute and Bruce Friedrich if he ever watches this video, he's never ever going to come to join our group. Or Liz Marshall, the director of the documentary, who is vegan. She lives in Toronto, and I've actually worked with her in the past a couple times as a director, as her editor. But I think that there's a category of people in the vegan movement and just changing society who they may be adversarial on certain points, but we know they're on the same side. We know that, we're wanting the same things. There's certain animal organizations that have kind of a welfarist attitude, but that their heart's in the right place. And then again, there's some that don't, that are still firmly entrenched in the mainstream. But I think it would be a really interesting opportunity to talk about the economy of what that organization sees, how they see the market shifting things, because that's something that Sailesh talks about. We are shifting markets. It's something that Al Gore talks about. There's a video that I found and reposted, edited a little bit just to focus on the right thing, where Maria Shriver prompts Al Gore to say, and we need to change our food. And he goes, yeah, I've been vegan. And then people start to clap, and he goes, no, don't clap. But then he explains that use your choices in life. And like the Paris Accord wasn't enough, it didn't ask for enough of what we need in order for the world to change. It was a story that you should not expect fossil fuels to be around forever. If you have always invested in fossil fuels, now it's time for you to think otherwise, because the Paris Accord was signed. The impossible happened, and our governments managed to sign a document and agree on something. So that's not enough progress, but it's enough progress to immediately have an effect on the markets, or at least he claimed it did. So he answered that question by talking about fossil fuels, but you can extrapolate the answer to say that the same would apply to food as well. Your choices matter. So at least one environmentalist believes that you can have a grassroots movement and that it matters. At least he says that and you never know if he gets scolded later on as being the chairman of the Climate Reality Project, because he's only the chairman of Climate Reality. He's not the CEO. He doesn't call the shots, and I think they make sure that he's has a very narrow talking point, very narrow window, especially when it comes to his diet, as being a vegan. He has a rehearsed pitch that we teased out of him at our training session. We gave him a DVD of Cowspiracy on stage in front of 800 people. And he said, well, I tried it and I felt better. It's not political. Why isn't it political? It should be political. It should be, first and foremost political. If you're Mr. Climate, then it's already political. Your relationship with animal agriculture is sadly lacking. I'm picturing that picture of Sailesh and Kimaya holding the sign, Mr. Gore. 51% is missing. Is that what it said?
Right, yeah.
So while we're talking about the new economy, who are the economists who see a change, who want to see a change from what we have and have plotted courses long ago? The chances of them being vegan are pretty slim. It would be nice, but
Say Herman Daly, Kate Raworth. These are the people who need to be talking to. We need to.
And Keith has given us a few links to videos to watch, including Kate Raworth's TED Talk, but an interview between them, which is about an hour long, but it was really good because she is a big, she was inspired a lot by Herman Daly.
Herman
Daly?
Daly. Mm-hmm.
It's pronounced Daly, right?
Yeah.
And we're just learning the players in the economy. I'm taking the masterclass from that masterclass, series of videos, highly polished videos of high-profile teachers. The masterclass by Paul Krugman, who's been mentioned. I've been finding articles about him, and as kind of a progressive economist, but he's kind of the threshold to radical thinking. That beyond him seems to be where real change of economic systems. He's still a defender of the status quo to a large degree, and I kind of see that through the videos that I've been watching. But Thomas Piketty is one name that comes up as somebody that's a little bit more interested in change, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with him.
Yeah, but we need to find non-colonialist voices. So that's basically, because all of this is based on colonialism. Colonialism drives capitalism, drives animal agriculture, it drives property ownership. So the idea of property ownership itself puts us in this bind that we are in. Okay.
So don't look for Americans, or what about like Richard Wolff
I would
communists?
You need to look for more original
Bolsheviks.
thinkers, maybe more indigenous people. How would you run economies, indigenous economies?
Are there any?
Well, you need to go
Indigenous economist is just such a clash of terms.
Exactly.
They must exist. They have to.
Exactly. So we need different voices from the voices that we are used to. Right? The voices that we are used to are served up by the current system. So we need someone, we need to be thinking about instead of capitalism, giftivism or contributionism, something like that. And instead of property ownership, it's stewardship. So it's stewardship. And instead of animal exploitation, it's kindness to animals should be normal. The respect for animals, treating them as equals, so that we do have, they are part of nature, and we are actually serving them. We are taking care of them. We are serving them. They are our bosses, really. So it's a different outlook that you need for the new economy, right? And then we have to. We are rethinking everything. You have to rethink the theories of pricing and demand and supply and all this nonsense. All that is old economy.
I think it has to be a tragedy that one of the most outspoken people, at least in Canada, against capitalism is Naomi Klein. And she is firmly entrenched in 350.org. She's on their board of directors. Right. And she's made her own documentary. This Changes Everything.
Right.
And we disrupted that one as well. We also handed out tickets to watch a screening coupon to watch Cowspiracy, and we handed it out to everybody in the lineup at the premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival, and said, this makes a good double feature. This fills in all the blanks that you're not going to see in this documentary. But she's the critic of capitalism. I don't know if she's tough enough, the toughest critic of capitalism. I haven't read those books. I've only read This Changes Everything, which was, it shows that she's on the ball and gets it. So, but like so many people that resist the vegan movement because it's the vegan movement and they're resisting it for largely political reasons, not, tangible, well argued through scientific reasons. They just become, unfortunately tainted by the politics, and they're more politicians than they are scientists after a point.
So it's as long as you preserve two of the legs, then you can attack one leg. You can say, then it's still stable. It's okay. You're still fighting. You're still in the same colonialist path. So you can attack capitalism, but so long as you say, I'm okay with eating animals and I'm okay with property ownership.
Well, this just gets even more bizarre because a lot of the resistance to veganism, or at least this is their handy tool, the environmentalists, at least in Canada, is that, we're environmentalists. We're fighting pipelines with the Indigenous people. And Indigenous people can't go vegan. So it would be really rude of us to be vegan. And, they're fighting for their hunting grounds. What sort of a conflict of interest would that be? So we can't be on your side, vegans. We're on their side. But now, where are they on the side of colonialism, or are they on the side of? I'm certainly
Yeah.
certain that the indigenous people are not.
Yeah, they're playing a game, right? So they're playing a game of pretending to be with for something when they're still happy with their cushy lives that they have.
Mhm.
So colonialism, gives cushy lives to people who are up the ladder, okay, up the hierarchy, at the expense of those at the bottom, right? And the animals are at the very bottom of that pyramid. They're being exploited like crazy. And then come the indigenous people or the other people who are doing slaughterhouse work and people like that, right? And they're basically slave laborers. And then you have people who are driving all this, who are sitting there and, typing things on a computer, making things happen over there. So,
Well, there's certainly a conversation to be had between the indigenous people of North America and the vegan community, and say, let's get together and grow our forests back. What do you
Yeah,
say? We could be
absolutely.
allies in that.
Absolutely.
We could help you stop the pipelines, but we need to change this food system. And more than half of the indigenous population lives in cities now. So the argument that they're fighting for their hunting grounds, for some people, while they're living in cities, they're encouraging this capitalist colonist industry called animal agriculture. It didn't exist here before we brought it. You have to go all the way to the Andes mountains to find some alpaca herds, whatever the equivalent of a alpaca shepherd is.
Julia, you've been quiet.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just listening.
So I have to get going soon.
One of the things I was talking to Keith about just before we got on, and you might have heard it because you had just come on to the call, was that we're trying to decide if Aquarius group is the dog and we're the tail, or we're the dog and Aquarius group is the tail. Which is going to, I know which is the order in the hierarchy of sociocracy, but where does the change come from? Is the change going to come from the Aquarius currency game, or is there something that we need to do? And I think I asked at a different meeting, what is it that this group needs to do in order to make the HIMSA currency, the Aquarius currency, move faster?
Right. I mean, as you know, the Aquarius currency is the game. The idea behind the game is that you can play it today, and in the process, you can get corporations to change their behavior too. Other corporations to change their behavior, because you're measuring their actual footprint of things and actual true cost of things. And so you're then demanding things that minimize that true cost, right? So it's a little bit like playing the vegan story, but spreading it out to other aspects of consumption too.
Do they know about this game, or are they just seeing the effects of the game, seeing their market come to them and demand things?
Yeah, they'll see the effects of the game because it's basically driven by demand, right? So the idea is then you can slowly change the whole ship to turn around, right? Because if you don't turn corporations around, they're very powerful right now. They're going to keep destroying the planet, going that way. Right? So you have to get them to turn around by changing our consumer behavior. So that's the idea behind the Aquarius game. So I saw it more as a transition game that we need to play in order to get to a vegan world. Right? So it's just, and then we need to, but the new economy idea is, new economy is, how do you create an economy once we get there? Once we get there, what does it look like when everything is based on volunteerism?
So this is it's hard for you to answer the question. What are our shift solutions to get there? We kind of have to. The old economy has to die, and then
The old
you
economy
decide what
will
the new one
become
looks
the
like.
new economy, right? It will become. I mean, the idea is that it will become like the new economy, and then people will be saying, "Well, you know, we are only looking at Aquarius as our as something of value." I mean, assuming that's the way we go, and therefore we are no longer interested in the Canadian dollar or the US dollar or whatever, and so then that becomes like the only thing that drives the economy, drives our consumer patterns. So then whatever we are doing there will remain that way, right? So that's the idea. But I mean, who knows? So I'm saying, you know, there are philosophical issues you need to address, which is how do you can you model an economy in which everyone feels like they're treated fairly and they do belong, and what would they do? It's a very psychological, it's a question of psychology as well, and sociology as well. What would that society look like?
So what would a task force that comes out of this group look like? Is it finding simulations? Yeah, I know you're looking for simulations for the Aquarius currency.
Right, yeah. So, I mean,
Is it
yeah.
the same thing or is it different?
I'd see different task forces coming out of this. I see new economy as more like a working group, you know, what we used to call a working group, which doesn't really work. So that's the joke behind the working group is the working group doesn't do any work. It actually gets others to do work for them, right? So that's so it spawns off other task study groups to go and there are sub problems that you address, you know, like how do you create volunteerism as a formal way of doing things.
So we get to delegate. Tell Jean-François to kick it in gear with that Aquarius currency. We need it right away.
But I know that in the working groups that we were working on, in the IEEE working groups that I was part of, yeah, we came to the working group to just discuss what every task force and every study group was doing. But we were in the study group, we were in the task force. So we were actually doing the work over there. You know? It's not like we didn't do any work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember some of these study groups, I can imagine them getting more granular and breaking down into smaller groups because there'll be things that, you know, some people want to focus on this while others want to focus on this. Right. And they're totally different directions, even though they're under that same economic or, you know, education or the other systems.
Right.
And the whole social justice is a complete different side that really hasn't gotten a lot of momentum yet, but hopefully soon.
Right. So, I mean, that's the idea is to create this foundation where people can come and play and start creating these things, working on these things, answering real questions that we are trying to answer.
Isalish, I just want to add one thing. Taking it from the Hindu concept, there are like a 3 pantheons, okay? There is a good classification of the management, okay? There are basically, it is said as like 3 gods, one for creation, one for maintenance, and one for recycle, okay? Mm-hmm. Take it in a very, very simple way. But the crux here is, the creator is called Brahma, and the maintenance person is called Vishnu, and the recycle person is Shiva, okay? And the actual know-how comes from the wife only, okay? Have a wife. So the creation cannot be done without knowledge. So the wife of the creator is Brahma Saraswati. The maintenance cannot be done without resource mobilization, which comes from his wife, Vishnu's wife, Lakshmi. And the power, leadership, cannot be done without any power. The actual power comes from Shakti. So the empty car is only the male characters. The actual execution comes from the feminine power. Okay, but why I'm taking that is the center part is Vishnu, which is the maintenance. He's the preserver, okay? But that preservation comes from resource mobilization, which people misunderstand as money. Lakshmi is like a resource mobilization. So she's like the resource. This is kind of like a concept expressed in both masculine and feminine form. I'm just telling it a very, very conceptual way. So now I'm saying like a new economy, there is a lot of exchange needs to happen. The interaction needs to happen. Like the right needs to talk to left, people needs to talk to other people, culture exchange, language exchange, ideas exchange, and definitely resources are part of it. Not with the intent of capital, not with the intent of massing thing, but in more of like, it is a big, massive effort to distribute or execute those logistics. So that I think there is a good process, resource, person, everything, objective, time frame, all has to come together. You can call it as a management, but we totally see things from a resource point of view. Everything is at the end of the day is a resource. Like you want to go and deliver that food, it's a resource. Like, are you making as a batch? Are you grouping them as a quantity, as a tender? Are you telling as a dozen, or how do you do? So are we talking about population? Do we have to identify that? Then you need people to identify that. This many people are hungry. The needs for the month of June is this much. So the mobilization part.
I thought you were telling a Hindu joke.
Yeah,
I was trying to follow it.
Funny part is like the guys.
Thought there might have been some girl power in there.
Exactly. And more people understand, they give coin.
And if you really have a Hindu god of recycling, I think you got too many gods.
And if you look at it, all these feminine gods have more hands. Male gods have only few hands. That tells they don't do. And they're asking pictorial way.
That joke's right there. I mean, even a non-Hindu can understand it.
Women are supposed to be better multitaskers than men. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
It's getting really late, you guys. I'm like almost 10:30 and I'm fading here. So thank you so much. Julia, I bought the movie.
Cool.
It's a beautiful movie, and I posted it on Facebook, and I'll watch it as soon as I can, but it looked like absolutely stunning movie.
Yeah.
So, so we should promote it, more.
Yeah.
Honestly, the oceans and the fish are kind of forgotten in a lot of vegan advocacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's important. But thank you so much, all of you. I'm exhausted. I had a root canal today.
Oh, no.
Ooh.
Oh, God. All right.
All right. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. I enjoyed the documentary, Julia. Like, it was very amazing. Like, I'm still scared of the depths. I was swimming like I'm like, but it is amazing. Like, this is like a thank you for the view without not getting into the water, and the awareness and everything. Like, it was really.
I asked you about that shot with the swordfish. That was stock footage. That wasn't your own footage, but that was footage given to you by somebody that shared their library.
Yes, that's right.
That was a terrifying shot. Like hundreds of swordfish just darting and trying to feed off this school of smaller fish. I mean, like, I wouldn't want to be in there with it. Hope that's a long lens.
He's got a really big camera. It's like 100-pound thing that they throw in the water, but underwater it's weightless, so it's all good.
But how close is he to that? Yeah, I'd be hiding behind a big camera too. That's
kind of what filmmakers do. Your camera is your shield, for sure.
I don't know why this triggered in my mind, but I was at Esther the Wonder Pig Sanctuary, and they gave us some training while we did some cleanup, and they said your shovel is your defense, because there's a bunch of other pigs on the farm, and even Esther can get a little ornery too, and a pig can knock you down. they're pretty big, and they got a big mouth too. So if they start to get aggressive, hide behind your shovel. Just keep your shovel in front of you. Get behind a tree, get behind the shovel.
All right. I'm going to get going too. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Sailesh.
Sailesh.
Bye-bye.
So I'll stop recording now.